iron and wealth born from the mind. Hello, energetic friends. Today, I want to tell you one of the most influential stories from the legendary book Think and Grow Rich, a story that proves to you that real wealth begins in your mind, not in your wallet. Have you ever felt like you don't have enough money to start a business or invest? If so, this story is for you. So listen up. In the early 20th century, amidst the smoky industrial sprawl of a burgeoning America, a man named Charles Schwab toiled as a humble laborer in a steel factory. The year was 1905, and the world was on the cusp of a technological revolution. Yet for Charles, life was a monotonous grind. Born into a modest family in Loretto, Pennsylvania, he had grown up with little more than determination and a pair of sturdy hands. Each day, as the factory's furnaces roared and the air thickened with the scent of molten metal, Charles watched as towering piles of scrap iron and discarded steel accumulated in a forgotten corner of the yard. These jagged, rusted remnants, once part of grand structures or machinery, were deemed worthless by his coworkers and supervisors alike. They were slated for disposal, a mundane waste product of the industrial age, destined for the scrap heap or the furnace to be melted into oblivion. But one crisp autumn afternoon, as the sun dipped low and cast long shadows across the factory floor, a spark of inspiration ignited in Charles's mind. An idea so bold it would reshape his destiny. Standing amidst the clatter of hammers and the hiss of steam, he murmured to himself, why not transform these seemingly worthless scraps into something people would pay for? The thought was revolutionary, a defiance of the status quo that saw value only in the new and pristine. His heart raced with possibility as he envisioned a future where the discarded could become desirable. Driven by this epiphany, Charles embarked on a journey of discovery. In the evenings after his shift ended, he lingered in the factory library, a small, dimly lit room filled with dog-eared manuals and technical journals. There, by the flicker of a single gas lamp, he pored over metallurgy texts and trade publications. His research revealed a simple yet profound truth. These scrap metals could be melted down, reshaped, and forged into practical items, nails, screws, and basic tools that builders and craftsmen needed daily. The process wasn't complex, but the challenge was monumental. Charles lacked the capital to invest in equipment.
1. A firm decision. Charles made a solemn vow to himself, his voice a quiet thunder in the solitude of his modest boarding-house room. I will do this, he declared, staring into a cracked mirror, even if the earth and sky conspire against me. This resolve became his anchor, a mental fortress against the doubts that gnawed at him. He visualized success not as a distant dream, but as an inevitable outcome, fueling his determination with every heartbeat. Each night, as he lay on a thin mattress under a threadbare blanket, Charles closed his eyes and painted vivid mental pictures. He imagined himself standing in a bustling workshop, overseeing rows of workers shaping molten metal into gleaming nails and screws. He saw himself negotiating with merchants, his voice steady and confident, and pictured stacks of coins piling up as proof of his triumph. This mental rehearsal, a ritual of hope, strengthened his belief that his idea could become reality. 3. Ingenious action. With no funds to spare, Charles devised a daring plan. The next morning, he approached the factory manager, a stern man with a gray mustache and a ledger always in hand. With a mixture of nerves and boldness, he proposed, instead of paying me in cash, grant me the rights to use the scrap iron that would otherwise be discarded. The manager, intrigued by the audacity, yet skeptical of the outcome, agreed after a moment's hesitation, seeing it as a low-risk experiment. With his newfound resource, Charles scraped together his meager savings, barely enough for a week's groceries, and purchased a second-hand smelting furnace from a retiring blacksmith in a neighboring town. The furnace, rusted and temperamental, was hauled to the cramped garage behind his boarding house, where he set up a makeshift workshop. The space was barely large enough for him to move, filled with the acrid smell of oil and the clatter of his tools. Using borrowed tongs and a makeshift mold, he began melting the scrap iron, the heat searing his face as he worked late into the night. His first batch of nails, rough and uneven, was a far cry from perfection, but it was a start. He ventured into the local market the following weekend, a basket of his crude nails slung over his shoulder. The shopkeepers, initially dismissive, were persuaded by his earnest pitch and the rock-bottom prices he offered. The first sales trickled in, small orders from carpenters and farmers who saw value.
Unyielding persistence. The road was not without setbacks. His early customers, expecting higher quality, returned the initial batches with complaints of brittleness and irregular shapes. The sting of rejection weighed heavily on Charles, but he refused to surrender. He sought advice from a retired metalworker, adjusting the smelting temperature and experimenting with different molds. Night after night he labored, his hands blackened with soot, until the nails emerged stronger and more uniform. His persistence paid off as repeat customers began to trust his brand and his reputation grew. The birth of an empire. Within 5 years, Charles Schwab's small garage operation had blossomed into a thriving enterprise. His workshop expanded into a full-fledged factory, its chimneys belching smoke as it churned out tons of nails, screws, and tools. The once scorned scrap iron had become the foundation of a fortune. In 1910, at the age of 35, Charles Schwab sold his company to a consortium of investors for a sum that ran into the millions, a testament to his ingenuity and grit. His success did not end there. Leveraging his newfound wealth and reputation, Charles ascended to the role of president of Bethlehem Steel Corporation, one of America's leading steel giants. Under his leadership, the company flourished, producing the steel that built skyscrapers, bridges, and warships, cementing his legacy as a titan of industry. His net worth soared into the hundreds of millions of dollars, a fortune built not on inherited privilege, but on the transformative power of a single idea. As the years passed, Charles Schwab's story became a legend, a tale of how a man with nothing but vision and perseverance turned the discarded into gold.